On this video, I'm going to take you through the full process of finishing sand and cement render on a brick wall, from when you're first laying on till your final rub. Right, so let's absolutely dive into this, guys. Here we are. The wall is already scratched. The mix is already mixed and tools are all at the ready here, and we're getting it all laid on. So the first thing to do is apply the render, and that's what we're doing. Hawk and trowel. Taking it out of the wheelbar this time, as it's a bit of a small room for a spot board and the mixer's just outside, just mixing our own stuff here. It's not ready mix. Again, have loads of videos on how to mix render and how to mix slapdash, all the rest. It's all on the channel. If you want to see them, drop me a comment. I can probably get you a link, or you can just search it up on the channel. I'm sure it will pop up somewhere there. But back to this video, and on this video we're showing you how to render a wall, and the main thing on this stage here is coating. But let me just explain what's on the background a little bit. So it's red brick wall. Normally would be a high suction red brick, but in this case it was actually quite damp, as it's only a single skin, not really a proper house build. It's more of like a garage area. So we'll have it scratched, used SBR in the mix, and painted SBR on the wall instead of scud coating, as it would just been more time consuming and it would have been obviously more messy and dirty. So just went straight for the scratch coat. Again, that is on and explained on previous videos, but so that's the background, guys, we're working over the top of. And as you know, this sand and cement is, it's a very durable, smooth finish, and that's what they want, that's what the customer wants, and that's what they're going to get. So again, apply it all as quick as you can, but trying to keep it as neat as possible, as the neater it is, the easier it is to straighten. And I do get a lot of questions on doing that set out, what's called screeds, and again, you don't need to. I possibly will do a video on it in the future and have a bit of time, not in somebody's house, because I don't have the time to do it, and they certainly don't have the money to sit and pay for you to set all that out on each wall. Again, you can do it with a level. I've showed that in previous videos as well. But so I'm applying the first coat here on top of the scratch coat. There will be other coats to go on once we start straightening up. But technically, this is the second coat over the scratch coat. And you're applying it. You want to apply it pretty firm, so that to keep the pressure in and make sure that there's no hollow spots. Again, your plastering is all about the mix. It's all about, if it's too wet, how does it react? If it's too tight, how does it react? Guys, even with me being plastering for as long as I have been plastering, sometimes you don't notice that your mix is a bit too tight until your arms are starting to burn, and then it's almost too late. But you kind of want your mix just right, not too wet, not too tight. If it's too wet as well, what happens is it's actually slightly weaker, as if you've got too wet a mix, basically you've diluted it all, so it's not going to be as strong as it was just the right mix. It's the same as concreting. There's a weird sweet spot, whereas if it's too wet it can be weaker, but if it's too tight it's not pliable, it's not workable. So you gotta find what works for you and what's best for you. And you can see here now I'm just working along the bottom. The good thing is that the ground was nice and clean, so anything on that falls on the ground can be used again. Not that I drop a vast amount anyway. I would say after this room is done, we're only talking about a wee quarter bucket of waste, which isn't bad for a couple of walls that we're doing. There is some walls behind the camera that you will see later on. But yeah, basically guys, a plan it as tidy as possible will make it easier to straighten. If it's too wet, you're going to end up actually with a lot of hollows, and it could slide and sag. Also, if it's too tight, it could drag when you straighten and just pull off the wall and or tear a lot. Also, you might be putting yourself under more pressure, not just the pressure in your arms because you're going to be tireder putting it on, but more pressure then to have to finish it because it will actually, with it being drier and tighter, it will need finished quicker. Now, when I typically coating walls, I do like to straighten them straight away. So whether it be on site or wherever it is, I would typically straighten the wall and then coat the wall and then straighten it up, and that way I find the straight edge doesn't pull on the arms too much. But if it ever was just too wet for you guys and too much sag on it, too much moving, you could just leave it a little while longer, or possibly coat another wall if you have another wall to do. Coat that. As you can see, you tend to drop more when you're straightening than you do when you're coating. And again, if you really wanted to, you could put a few bits of plastic down, dust sheet down, or some boards that collect anything that falls. But like I said earlier, anything falls, the ground's pretty clean, getting cleared up after. And again, it can also be remixed. So it's not too bad whether it falls or not. So if you watch the way I straighten, so I start top left coating and then coat the bottom left to right, whereas a lot of plasterers do coat from the right to the left. I say a lot, but most I know actually do it the same way that I do it. So when I'm straightening, then I'm just pulling up and then I'm pulling across. So you're straightening it in multiple directions. If you just straighten it going up, what could happen is you could have a big bell cast at the bottom. Possibly as you come up, you'll dig in more as well. So the wall could end up, it'll only be straight in one direction. And then if somebody was to, put a wardrobe or something up here just for talk's sake, it'll show up that it's got a big hollow in the middle, big curve in it, basically. So you want to make sure you straighten in both directions. So once you do that, you're looking for your slacks, your hollows, and what you do with them is you fill them back out again, as the straight edge should take away all the high spots, and then what you're then looking for is the low spots, so that you're filling the low spots in, and then you can cut them back off again with the straight edge or a rule. Again, some of you is watching might not have straight edges, which is fine as long as you're using something that is straight, and it has to be straight because the wall will follow it. So possibly you could use an old bit of skirting. It's not too flexible. You could use like an old door frame, any timber that's perfectly straight and has a nice straight edge on it. Or again, you can have a makeshift or use a spirit level and just wash it after. And make sure you wash it after, guys. If it's as warm as it has been lately, and you don't wash it, you'll find that it will get cooked in, and it'll be much harder to wash. So any tools you do use, very important. Make sure and wash them when you're done. So getting on well here, back on the video. getting it all straightened out, which is the main thing here. It's quite actually awkward with these sockets. Um, Sometimes working around sockets, windows, windowsills, door frames, corners, beads. Some of these things can add more of a challenge to the job. But again, every house has them. So if you want to be a plasterer and you want to learn rendering, you want to learn plastering, these are all things that you will have to overcome, and you'll have to figure out what suits your style. Not only your style, but basically, it has to be right as well. It has to look right and it has to be right. So, again, it's not easy work, guys. If you sort of have to have a wee bit of sort of strength about you. I was going to say fitness, but not so much fitness, but you do have to be sort of fit and able for this job. If you have a bad back, you'll most likely you'll not be able to plaster or render, because it can be quite strenuous on the body. Or if you have a bad shoulder or bad hip, it would be pretty hard to do. Again, any wee pains you get from plastering, when you go back to work the next day, it's always a bit more of a challenge to stay there. But as you can see, guys, anything comes off the wall is fresh and is going straight back into the wheelbarrow or a spat board or whatever. If you have a tub, sometimes what we find ourselves doing on site is if we are putting on a whole room, say you're downstairs and it's concrete floor. The great thing about the concrete floors are that there's always DPCs built in. Well, not always. I've seen some houses that don't have them, but on the site they're always in. They're always built right. And what happens is if your mortar falls, as long as you've brushed that up, if your mortar falls on that plastic's low suction, so it doesn't dry, and you can actually use that again for rubbing and filling. Again, do find, don't actually drop all that big amount. But again, if you're new to the job, you might find yourself dropping some more. So that's kind of something to bear in mind. Also, if you watch what I'm doing back into the wheelbarrow, if you are doing a lot and you find the stuff's drying, you might want to put it in a separate bucket and then add some water and mix that up again, or put it back in your mixer if you're mixing your own stuff, as the wall suction tends to dry the stuff. So sometimes when you're straightening and you're putting it back onto the board, all you're doing, you're stiffening all the stuff up, and if you're doing large areas, you might not want to do that, because like I said, you could be 3, 4, 5 hawkfulls down the line and thinking this job's just get harder, and then you'll realise it's because you've been straightening stuff off and putting it on the board, and it's mixing with the fresh stuff and making it tighter. It's kind of just a wee tip there that you will learn. You'll pick that up as the more you do, you'll pick up these wee things yourselves. So we've nearly all straightened, and the next stage will be where we're starting to finish. So once you have all your walls straightened, again, depending on the suction of the wall, how you've controlled your suction. This wall, like I said, was pretty damp, and it was scratched fresh a day or two previous, so there's no suction in it whatsoever. But some jobs are different. Some blocks would require needing to be wet down, so the wall will dry quicker, which means that it could need rubbed quicker. So you have to just sort of keep everything in mind of what your background is, what it is you're doing, what you're trying to achieve. Obviously, if it's just a scratch coat and it's drying, it depends on your scratcher as well. Some scratchers won't actually kate up so good, whereas some kate, better when it's drying, whereas comb can just ride over the top. But as you can see, there's quite a lot of effort and work going into just coating and straightening a wall, and I've tried my best to keep the clips down to a minimum here. No, sorry, like as little editing as possible here, so you can actually see the full process. I'm trying to show basically the entire wall in its whole, not just wee snippets. Just and again, like the voiceover, just trying to walk through it so that everybody sort of gets a better picture and a better feel of how long maybe you want to be basically coating at the wall. But now that I have it all on and it's straight, you gotta be thinking about when to rub it. And the wall's now getting ready. It's still a wee bit early, but you kind of, if you're new, you don't want to be going on it too early with a float. If you've been at it some time, it's just basically it's a pressure thing. How much pressure you apply to the float. If it's wet, if it's too wet, the issues that can occur are, you could rub holes into it, you could rub holes into it, and you could drag into the surface, and you'll be back to square one. Don't really want to do that. What you want to do is, when the render's firmed up enough, you want to rub it down with the float, which will compress the surface, and it brings it up nice, even, flat, and smooth. And actually, as far as sort of sand and cement finishes come, a sponge finish is probably right up there with the best finish on inside or outside. Most times this is the kind of job that's done outside, but like I said, this is just off a back of a garage basically. So, and the rest of it's sand, cement and painted, so the guy just wanted to keep the exact same thing. So basically what I'm doing is, now I'm washing the top angle, guys, because that ceiling has been plasterboarded, bonded and skimmed. So when I've been rendering up, that was something I haven't actually even mentioned yet. I'm rendering up to a ceiling that is hard, but still, it's still markable. So I've had to been going very easy with the trowel up there and with the straight edge, not to score it. Otherwise, I'd have to patch it all up. But what you will find is you still do dirty it up, and you still do mark it a wee bit with the back of the trowel when you're coating your cement up. So it's very important to wash that off. If you don't wash it off, it'll look very sloppy, and it'll honestly look like you didn't give too much thought into the actual finish of the job. So I'm using a wee tussle brush, a wee fine brush, and just wiping away and washing away them bits of cement that has touched the ceiling. Again, that would be good practice if there's any type of ceiling, if they have ply on the ceiling or something, say, or you're working up to an existing ceiling and it's already, painted plaster or something, you're going to want to make sure and wash that angle down. And here's some much nicer footage up close and personal. You can see, fill in the holes as I go. Again, I hear lots and lots of comments on the way, the movement of your float. And again, my thing is I move it in all different directions, just depending on, where the holes are and what way it rubs. 88 is a very good way of rubbing. You're covering quite a lot of area up and down and round, so you're just following like a pattern up and down round. But the way I'm rubbing it here, sometimes that's a very comfortable way to rub, because you're not twisting your shoulder and your elbow too much. So it's not a bad way to rub as well, guys. All rubbed up. Let's see. We stop bead on there. A wee quick tidy up here. There's going to be a big tank or a big heat source pump there. Obviously this wall. A wee bit of issues there with just something wet. Just wouldn't rub in that area, but got there. It's not too bad now. Making sure to clean out the sockets. There's a wee patch there. The only concern that one would be is as it fully sets, it just cracks. But it shouldn't do because it's been well polished in there. Again, seen them really skinned today, so you have to sort of wash them angles down afterwards. That seen them was very bad shape. We had to bond the life for that. But we got there. Again, clean your, wash your wee angles down, wherever it be. And your floor. The floor nice and tidy. But yeah, this video will probably be on how to render a wee small wall, how to get it coated, straightened, rubbed, sponged, or at least give you some good hints.
What we do in life echoes in eternity.